Haggai chapter 2, and we'll read together from verses 1 to 9. Haggai chapter 2 and verses 1 to 9. My message this morning is titled, Overcoming the Mountain of Disappointment. Overcoming the mountain of disappointment. Disappointment can be a very, very big mountain. Discouragement, very much the same. But I'm believing God this morning that He will give us the grace and strength to overcome this mountain of disappointment. Some of you are here and you have been here for a while and you've been praying and looking to God for Him to do something in your life. And it seemed like nothing has been happening. And this disappointment has been growing and growing in your life. And you're wondering what is going on. It is my prayer that this morning that God will do something. Overcoming the mountain of disappointment. Reading from Haggai chapter 2 in verses 1 to 9. On the 21st of the 7th month, the word of the Lord came by Haggai the prophet, saying, Speak now to Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, the governor of Judah, and to Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and to the remnant of the people, saying, Who is left among you who saw this temple in its former glory? And how do you see it now? Does it not seem to you like nothing in comparison? But now take courage, Zerubbabel, declares the Lord. Take courage also, Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and all the people of the land. Take courage, declares the Lord, and work, for I am with you, says the Lord of hosts. As for the promise which I made you when you came out of Egypt, my spirit is abiding in your midst. Do not fear. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, once more in a little while, I am going to shake the heavens and the earth, the sea also, and the dry land. And I will shake all the nations, and they will come with the wealth of all the nations, and I will fill this house with glory, says the Lord of hosts. The silver is mine, and the gold is mine, declares the Lord of hosts. The latter glory of this house will be greater than the former, says the Lord of hosts. And in this place I shall give peace, declares the Lord of hosts. Now this is a mighty word of encouragement to the builders. On the 5th of September, 1886, the Prince of Preachers, Charles Spurgeon, began his sermon on our text with these very incisive words. He said, Satan is always doing his utmost to stop the work of God. He hindered the Jews from building the temple. And today he endeavors to hinder the people of God from spreading the gospel. A spiritual temple is being built for the Most High. And if by any means the evil one can delay its uprising, he will stop at nothing. If he can take us off from working with faith and courage for the glory of God, he will sure do it. He is very cunning and knows how to change his argument and yet keep to his design. He little cares how he works so long as he can hurt the cause of Christ. These are words by Spurgeon, who was popularly known as the Prince of Preachers, talking about the devil. Now, what I've discovered over the years that Satan's only design is to hurt the cause of Christ. He has many weapons in his arsenal to do this task. He may at once use greed, another time use anger or malice or false accusations. Still another time he uses lust, evil desires or temptation to revenge. But of all the weapons that the devil has in his storeroom, I believe nothing is sharper than the one called discouragement. If only he can get the saints of God to despair over their efforts, then I believe his battle is already won. So of all the equipment that the devil uses and weapons against the church of God, against the people of God, it's discouragement. It was once advertised that the devil is going to put up all his tools for sale. On the date of the sale, the tools were placed for public inspection, each having marked with its sale price. There were a treacherous lot of implements displayed that day. Hatred, envy, jealousy, doubt, lying, pride, and so on. Laid apart from all of these implements was a harmless looking tool, well worn and priced very high. "What's the name of that tool?" said a prospective buyer. "Oh," said the devil, "that's discouragement." "Why have you placed such a high price on it?" "Because it is more useful than any other tool that I have. I can open and get inside of a person's heart with that one," he said. "When I cannot get near him with other tools. Now once I get inside, I can make him do whatever I choose. It's a badly worn tool because I use it on almost everyone, since few people know that it really belongs to me." The devil's price for discouragement was so high. He never sold it. It's still, I believe, his major tool, and he still uses it on God's people today. And I'm sure if we had to have a time of just sharing, so many will say discouragement has been a great tool. And it's been the Christians, the ones that should have not used that tool, that have used that tool to break them down. Disappointment is the theme of this message this morning. And what we have read is that the people in Israel during the ministry of Prophet Haggai are disappointed and discouraged. Many years earlier, in the year 586 BC, we read in church history that the Babylonians invaded Israel. They had taken the people away to Babylon as captives. And the Babylonians came through and destroyed Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. Now, almost 50 years, the people were then allowed to return to Israel. When they arrived, they began immediately the process of rebuilding the temple. The work, however, stopped after a short time because of the opposition that they received from the Samaritans. And for 16 long years, the temple remained unfinished. Then God raised a man by the name of Haggai and encouraged the people through him to go back to this task of rebuilding the temple. The people, as we read, responded responded to the voice of God's man. And they began to build again, but after only a month, they became discouraged. And again they wanted to quit. They were disappointed by the temple they were building, and they were discouraged in the work that they were doing. You see, Haggai writes to them to challenge them and to encourage them to carry on. This is a message I think is good for all of us even here today, because how many of us get discouraged? How many of us want to give up? How many of us feel that God is not really listening to us? Do you ever get discouraged? Do you ever find yourself disappointed in the work that you're doing for the Lord? Yes, we all do. There are times when disappointment looms over us like an impossible eye. If we are not careful, folks, our disappointment can derail our lives and cause us to lose our faith and focus. If we are not careful, our disappointments can even cause us to quit on the Lord. And so many have already quit on the Lord simply because they were disappointed. I want to take a few moments to look into the words Haggai shared with the people in Jerusalem at this time of discouragement and disappointment. The lessons taught here can help us even in our times of discouragement and disappointments. And so I want to talk to you about overcoming this mountain of disappointments. Firstly, I'd like us to look at the cause of disappointment. What is the cause of disappointment? The reason for the disappointment are many. And as we have read, most of them revolve around bad memory. Most of these reasons for disappointment are rooted in bad memory. You see, our memory can be a blessing or a curse. The Jews were guilty of focusing on the negative and forgetting all about the positive things that God had done for them. For those Jews, memory was a heavy burden that hindered their progress. And so we must look at what are the things we should remember. Look at verse 3, the first part of verse 3. Haggai asked a question here in verse 3, the first part. Who is left among you that saw this house in a former glory? Haggai prophesied in 520 BC. The temple was destroyed in 586 BC. And therefore it's been 66 years since Solomon's temple had been destroyed. Now I want you to see something very, very important here. Solomon's temple was covered in gold. Estimates put it around $20 billion worth of gold covered that temple. Now, do you make sense of that? 20 billion, not million. $20 billion of gold. Now you swank around a chain and a small ring and you think, oh, this is 8,000, this is 10,000. Now, $20 billion worth of gold. Have you got any idea how much of gold that was? And it was destroyed. You can understand why some people were crying, why some people were so discouraged, because they were looking at this temple that was getting built, and it was a far cry of what the original temple was. I mean, if you had $20 billion worth of gold covering your house of prayer, and now there's no gold, there's, you know, it could even hardly afford silver. And if you were there in that original temple, you'd say, no, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't want to go there. I know when we had the best. I know when we had a big crowd. I know when we had thousands of people. I know when we had a great big band. I don't want to go there. Our memories can be a real problem to us. Or it can be a blessing. Here it wasn't a blessing. Because the people that saw this temple going up thought about the former days when they had a massive, beautiful, the most beautiful building in the whole world. The place where God came down and spoke. The place where God's Spirit and presence moved. Now they're building another temple that was nowhere near the former glory. The same people look at this temple now and they seem to be embarrassed because they remembered the old temple. Verses 4 and 5. The things we forget. In these verses, God reminds them that He was with them in the past. He was with them when they crossed the Red Sea. He was the author of all the miracles that adorned Israel's past. He had always been with them. And He was there during the glory days of Solomon's temple. He had always been there. And He still remembers the promises and the covenants He had made with them 900 years earlier. He was standing by every promise He had ever made to His people. They had heard the stories about God. The problem was stories from their past had become just that, just stories. They had ceased to hold real meaning for the Jews. They were sure that the glory days of the past and God would bless them were gone.